coming. So wonderful to see everyone here. As a longtime supporter of the DC Bar Foundation and attorneys and law firms, PNC is just thrilled to host all of you this evening as we continue to be so impressed by the incredible work of that all of you do for our community. In an effort to stay on schedule, I will keep my comments brief this afternoon or this evening. However, I, along with a few of my colleagues from PNC, are here this evening, and we certainly are pleased to answer any questions that you may have throughout the evening. We'll all be here this evening. And one last very important housekeeping tip for all of you. If anyone is looking for the restrooms, they are across the elevator bank to your right. So hope that everyone has a fabulous evening tonight, and we are certainly looking forward to getting to know you as well. And with that, I will hand it over to John. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the DC Bar Foundation's 2022 Fall Reception. My name is John Relman. I've served on the Foundation's board since 2018 and as president of the board since October 1. So this is my first event presiding as president. There you go. Thank you. Great. I want to first thank PNC for generously providing this space for this evening's event. We very much look forward to the fall reception each year as an opportunity to connect with so many who work in the district's civil legal aid space. And I have to say, we are absolutely thrilled to be back in person after a 3-year hiatus due to the pandemic. So it's really wonderful to see everybody and to be able to be here in person with you all tonight. Tonight, there are many representatives of the district's civil legal aid community that are joining us. We have DC Bar Foundation grantees. We have the DC Bar President and President-elect. We have the past Scout Prize recipients. We have judges, DC Council members, volunteers, individual and corporate donors, and many others. Welcome to each one of you, and a special welcome to those joining us online tonight. Thanks to the excellent work of the tech team from Buoyant Partners. So thank you very much for all of your work. The fall reception has really two primary purposes. The first is to thank our donors and grantees, volunteers, board members, and all those who play crucial roles in delivering civil legal aid in the district. And we really just couldn't do our work without you. So thank you. And we're so glad that so many of you are here. And the second is to award the Scout Prize to a full-time legal aid attorney who has demonstrated a career-long compassionate concern for their clients while exhibiting a high degree of skill. This evening, the Foundation's CEO, Kira Jarrett, will provide a program update focusing on the steps we've taken in the past year to advance our strategic framework. And, of course, we will award the Scout Prize and hear remarks from this year's recipient, Jonathan Smith, who is the Executive Director of the Washington Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights and Urban Affairs. And finally, we want to recognize the board, advisory committee, and Young Lawyers Network Leadership Council members who are completing their terms. So we will do that as we finish up. So again, welcome. We're so glad that all of you are here tonight and joining us this evening. And now I'm going to turn it over. We're looking forward to hearing from Kira Jarrett, our Executive Director.
Good evening. I can't believe we're in person. I'm so excited. I want to add my welcome to everyone who's here on behalf of the team. I see several folks over here. So if folks who are staff at the DC Bar Foundation could just stand up for 1 second. It's not in my script, but I have to do it. Just want to thank and recognize you all for your work. I want to thank the donors who are here. I'm going to start with that. Starting with our 77 society members, who are people who've given more than $1,000 to support the mission of the foundation. And then there's a number of firms and companies who have supported at the $25,000 level and up, and you'll see these names on your screen. I also want to recognize our Triple Crown firms, and these are firms that have supported 3 fundraising campaigns, which are Call to Action, Champions for Justice, and Avenues to Justice. So this year, the foundation celebrates 45 years. The foundation was founded on November 4th, 1977. That's when our Articles of Incorporation were filed with a $12 fee. One of the signers of our Articles of Incorporation had hoped to be here in person today, Zona Hostetler, but I understand that she's participating through the live stream. And you will see some of the key dates over the past 45 years on the screen behind me, and I'll just highlight a few of them. So the first, of course, is our founding in 1977. And what's not on here is the first grants were awarded in 1978, and those were funded with the support of law firms. In 1985, the DC IOLTA program was established. For those of you who are not attorneys, IOLTA stands for the Interest on Lawyers Trust Account. And so we get the revenue from the interest from certain bank accounts to support legal aid. So we are the district's administrator of that program. In 1992, the Scout Prize was formed, and it was awarded to Paula Scott, who's actually here. Council Projects Program, which is focused on eviction. In 2019, we launched our new strategic framework, which is really focused on transforming the delivery of civil legal aid in our city. And then in 2022, as a part of moving that framework forward, we launched the DC Legal Aid Transformations Network, which I will talk about a little bit more in a moment. I did want to share some of the highlights of the year. It's been 3 years since we launched the strategic framework. And just to net out the words, it's to transform the civil legal aid network, working closely with all stakeholders so district residents have a fair and equal legal experience. And we've got quite a bit to do, made a lot of progress, but still more to do. And so I just want to highlight 3 things that have happened. The first I just mentioned, which is the DC Legal Aid Transformations Network. This is an unprecedented collaboration between legal aid and other stakeholders who are focused on the well-being of the people who show up at each of our organizations. We have been making real progress with that network. We are focused on well-being, anti-racism, anti-poverty, and we have chosen as an initial area of focus the launch of a coordinated intake and referral system, which is a system that will make it easier for people to get legal help and easier to navigate the more than 60 legal services providers that exist in our city, which I think is more than any state. And so we have an abundance of riches, which you can imagine how difficult it is for people to find help, given all those providers who exist. So we have been making some real progress towards that. We do hope to launch, yes, applause, I love it. And we do hope to launch the system in December 2024. We've been having some really hard conversations about how do we do the work that we do. We were in a conversation earlier today about what does it mean to do this work in a way that's trauma-informed and culturally responsive, and what do those words mean, and really taking a moment to confront one another and have conversations about what that means. The second highlight is that we are centering community voice, and so we are really making sure that as a part of our core values and the way we do our work, that we're listening directly to the people that we want to help. And so we have been doing that through focus groups, we have been doing that through surveys, we have been doing that through evaluation efforts, so we're not getting information second and third hand. We're listening to district residents who are experiencing our system and understanding what are the challenges and how can we do it better. And then the third highlight is that we are grounding our work in racial justice and racial equity. And by racial justice, I mean the transformation of our society to eliminate racial hierarchies so that all of us can participate with dignity and resources and power and self-determination in a full way. And by racial equity, I mean the process of how we get there. And so those are two principles that are in our core values and in the strategic framework. And so you'll hear us repeat those over and over. And so for the foundation, that has meant we're looking at how we do our work. So we've done an evaluation or an assessment of our grant-making effort, of our operations, of our overall structure, and we have begun to make changes. So some of them, like the Young Lawyers Network Leadership Council, are a lot easier. You know, it's a simple difference of membership, but some of them are more difficult, but we need to do them. And so I would say there's much to do, but delighted at the pace. I did want to take a moment to recognize several of our community who we lost since we came together. And I want to do that before we kind of move on to the celebration of the Scout Prize. And so the first person I want to recognize is Mark Herzog. Mark received the Scout Prize in 2012, and he served on the foundation's board from 2018 to 2021, and he died in November of last year. The second person is Janine Sanford, who also received the Scout Prize in 2005. She served on the Scout Prize Committee, and she served in various roles at Bread for the City for more than 30 years. She passed away in July of this year. And then I also wanted to recognize Brian Benko, who was one of the founding members of the DC Bar Foundation's Young Lawyers Network Leadership Council, which he served on from 2011 to 2020, and he passed away in August of this year. And so I would ask that you join me in a moment of silence to remember these three individuals and the others that we've lost. Thank you. So the celebration tonight is all about Jonathan. We are thrilled this year to award the Scout Prize to Jonathan Smith, Executive Director of the Washington Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights and Urban Affairs. The foundation administers this prize. It was established by the firm of KMA Zuckert, formerly Zuckert, Scout, and Rausenberger, in honor of the public interest commitment of one of its founding partners, Gerald Scott Jr. So that's the what. The why is we want to recognize the members of our community who are often sort of the unsung heroes. So the prize recognizes a full-time legal services lawyer who has demonstrated a career-long compassionate concern for their clients while exhibiting a high degree of skill representing them. And we began awarding this award in 1993. Some of DC's most impactful legal aid attorneys are here tonight, and that's the second group that I'm going to ask to stand. So all of the Scout Prize recipients who are in the room, would you please stand so that we can recognize you? And so I'd like to introduce Ted Howard, who will introduce Jonathan. Ted is a pro bono partner at Wiley Ryan and a member of the Washington Lawyers Committee Board. After Ted's introduction, we'll have a short video tribute to Jonathan before I present the Scout Prize to him. So, Ted.
Good evening, everyone, and thanks, Kira, for the kind introduction. Tonight, it's my privilege to have the opportunity to introduce the honoree, a dear friend of mine for many years, and truly remarkable human being, Jonathan Smith. I met John in 1989. Around that time, I had decided that after several years in practice, it was time for me to take the lead on an important pro bono case, and that I wanted to do something meaningful on behalf of the thousands of black men imprisoned in the District of Columbia. Fortunately, a relatively new organization, the DC Prisoners Legal Services Project, could meet both of my needs, and it had an energetic and passionate young leader, Jonathan Smith. My team and I worked diligently under John's guidance for about 2 years until on the eve of trial, subject to some gentle prodding by Judge Bryant, the district decided to settle the case, and our clients, residents of the DC jail who had been subject to unprovoked and excessive beatings by a roving band of vigilante guards, each received a substantial monetary payment. And by that time, John and I had developed a friendship that continues to this day. As many of you know, since the early days at the Prisoners Project, John has had a series of critical leadership positions within the DMV legal services community. The Maryland Public Justice Center, the Legal Aid Society, the Special Litigation Section of the Civil Rights Division at the Department of Justice, and the Executive Director of the Washington Lawyers Committee. In all of those roles, John's North Star has remained constant and unchanging. It is that there are unrepresented, disenfranchised people, predominantly persons and communities of color, who are locked in a perpetual, unrelenting struggle to meet their basic human needs. And that conscious, caring, and motivated individuals privileged with the benefit of legal education can use the law as a tool to change the lives of those in need for the better. With empathy and energy and enthusiasm and optimism and a wonderful sense of humor, John has made this work the work of his professional life, summoning a commitment that few, if any, can match, and setting a standard to which us mere mortals can only aspire. In a legal community in which excellence is the norm, Jonathan has established himself as a lawyer's lawyer. More importantly, he is an even better person. It is hard to imagine anyone more deserving than John of the recognition he receives tonight. If any of you are reluctant to take my word for it, please direct your attention to the screen for further testimonials from sources more credible than myself.
I met Jonathan some time ago, I think 35, 40 years ago. I was serving life. And I contacted Jonathan and he said, man, I had a life sentence. What can you do to help me? I said, send me the paperwork. And I needed a habeas corpus. So when Jonathan wrote back, he said, you don't need a habeas corpus. You need a habeas escapist. I had too much time. So that's just a little joke that I share with. But Jonathan, after 35 to 40 years, I met him. Every time I went in on them 2-3 sabbaticals with the Department of Justice, I write Jonathan. He wrote me back. He would send me information. He would help me. He never rejected me. He treated me like a human being. And because of that, he and I maintained a friendship over 40 years. I'm on the inside, he on the outside. And I came out once or twice. And again, I always called Jonathan. He never jumped on me. Why are you back? What happened? Circumstances dictate, that's what it was. But beyond that, he looked at me as a human being and as a friend. And I've always considered Jonathan as a friend. And I have very few white friends. And Jonathan is up near the top of the list. Sure, he works in the law. Some things he can do, some things he can't. But you can bet your boots, he gonna give you the real deal. He gonna be honest, straightforward. He ain't gonna give you no false hope. And for that, I respect and appreciate Jonathan Smith. And if I was a white guy, I wanna be just like Jonathan.
I first met Jonathan Smith more than 30 years ago when we were young-ish executive directors. In the years since we met, I have learned many things from Jonathan, but there are 3 key things that I've learned about Jonathan that underscore why he is so deserving of the Scout Prize. First, I've learned that John is a brilliant lawyer. He has an unparalleled ability, and I think anyone who has worked closely with him would agree, that John can craft a successful cause of action to challenge nearly any harm that his clients are made to suffer. And he has an unrelenting drive to hold accountable those who are the source of that harm. The second thing I've learned about John is that he is a strategic advocate. He has recognized the importance of diverse voices and perspectives in advocacy, and he has worked to forge collective and collaborative advocacy efforts that take that into account. He knows that voices together are more powerful than disparate voices. And he has played a vital role in the forging of efforts such as Fair Budget Coalition and the DC Access to Justice Commission, both of which have been hugely successful in bringing resources into the community. Perhaps the most important thing I've learned about John, and what I cherish most, is that he has an unfailing commitment, heart and soul, to justice in its truest sense. He knows that true justice can't be achieved simply by bringing more lawyers into the community or even by providing a right to counsel. John knows that true justice cannot be achieved until we have achieved racial justice and economic justice. And he has devoted his life to making that happen. He knows that lawyers have not only a role, but he believes that lawyers have a responsibility to use our skills and our toolbox towards that end. John is so very deserving of this award that is being presented to him this evening. To honor him for that special recognition, I would urge that we all rededicate ourselves to working to forge that true justice in the community that John has dedicated his life to.
What a great choice for the Scout Prize this year. Jonathan Smith is an every person, and he is brilliant on all of it. He's a visionary. His North Star speaks of what the world should be: access to justice for everybody. He speaks with clarity for victims of discriminations against people of color and low-income people of all color. But at the same time, he is a fighter day-to-day. Litigation, detail, and also on broad policy too. He has worked in nonprofit organizations and in the government. Wherever John comes, he makes justice better.
Jonathan, would you like to join me up here? Jonathan, I want to present the Scout Prize Award to you. Very much well deserved.
Thank you very much. Thank you, sir.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Oh, I have to take a picture.
Oh, you have to, yeah, go ahead. Can I just stick this here? It's hard to talk after all that. It is extremely humbling. Ted, thank you for extremely generous introduction. Patty, Peter, Roach. It really, it's humbling. I don't actually recognize that person you're talking about, so it set me off a little bit from my talk. But it is really a tremendous honor to receive the Scout Prize from the Bar Foundation amongst all of my colleagues and friends, and to see so many really wonderful faces in the crowd of people I have worked with over the years. And when Seth called me and said that I was going to receive the Scout Prize, I reached out to Kira and asked who had nominated me for the prize, and she told me that it had been Mark Herzog. And it is really with Mark front of my mind tonight that I accept this award and make these comments tonight. To have lost both Mark and Janine this last year was a real blow to the movement for equal justice. They've both been strong and really clear leaders over decades of work that has happened here in the District of Columbia. They were around with the founding of the Consortium of Legal Services Providers when we had, hold your horses, 13 legal services programs here in the District of Columbia. Through the financial crisis of the late 1990s, the Financial Control Board, and all of that brought to our communities, through the founding of the Access to Justice Commission, through the Great Recession, and through wave after wave of gentrification and other crises that impacted our clients' communities. They were clarion voices and throughout all of that, and their friendship and their leadership is missed and will continue to be very deeply felt. It's also humbling to have so many other honorees in the crowd. People who have received this award have come out, and many people in this audience who are going to be future recipients of the award. And I'm grateful for people coming out to the celebration. And to see so many people that I have worked with over the years in this crowd. This award is really, it feels somewhat fraudulent because I've done nothing alone by any stretch of the imagination. And in fact, I probably don't have any real ideas. I just know how to steal the best ideas. And so this award belongs to all of those people who have been colleagues and friends who have been with me, and we've been able to partner together. And particularly, this award belongs to the clients that I've had the honor to work with and to partner with around justice. I also want to recognize in this award my family who has put up with me over these years, and my son, Jamie, is here tonight, and who is, without doubt, one of the most courageous and kind people I've ever had the pleasure to meet, and often been the inspiration for doing the right thing. So thank you, Jamie, for coming here with me tonight. So I'm at this point in my career, in my life, when there's more of my career behind me than in front of me. And I'm not one usually for looking back. What do they say? Don't look back, something might be gaining. But having spent 40 years of my life working on cases and projects around economic and racial justice, and then in the summer of 2020, people going to the street to demand something fundamental in the nature of justice, it's hard not to reflect. And it's hard not to think back over that career. And in looking back over that career, I'm incredibly proud of the work that I've been able to do and the cases and projects I've been able to participate in. And through partnership with courageous clients and incredible colleagues, we've accomplished a great deal. In some cases, harsh prison conditions have been changed. Police have been held accountable. Tenancies saved, workers have gotten the wages that they're entitled to, educational opportunities have opened up, and we've brought persons with disabilities home from institutions. But as much as I am proud of these accomplishments, the fundamentals haven't changed. Our work to create justice in our criminal legal system has been necessary, but it's been insufficient. I started my career in the shadow of the rebellion in Attica. It was at the height of the legal movement around prisoners' rights. And in those heady days, we thought that we could end the carceral state through litigation. As we stand here today, there are twice as many people in prisons and jails as the day that I started to practice law. The conditions in prisons and jails remain cruel and inhumane, and they've become blacker and browner over the years. Our work to create economic justice has been absolutely necessary but insufficient. Recently, I was digging through papers looking for something, and I found a talk that I gave 15 years ago. And in that talk, I analyzed the data that demonstrated that wealth inequality was as large as it had been since the Gilded Age. Every year since, the gap between rich and poor has grown greater. Our work for LGBT equality has been necessary, but insufficient. Despite the amazing achievements of same-sex marriage, trans and gay youth are now under attack, demonized by politicians in some of the cruelest ways. Our work to create housing justice has been necessary, but not sufficient. As we stand here tonight, 50 years after the enactment of the Fair Housing Act, we're in one of the most segregated cities in a segregated country. Where you live often dictates the quality of education, access to health care, access to nutrition. It changes your life outcomes. We often refer to these communities as marginalized or vulnerable. Those are just polite words for racism and oppression. Our work to create education justice has been necessary but insufficient. Schools today are as segregated as the day that Brown versus Board of Education was decided. And you don't have to take my word for it. That actually comes from a report of the General Accounting Office. We have a system of apartheid schools. This all comes without even accounting for the actions of our Supreme Court, which wants to take us back to some idolized past of unbridled white supremacy. These outcomes shouldn't be surprising. We're appealing to justice from the very system that creates and sustains inequality. The law is an institution, the law is not the only institution that the Fair Labor Standards Act. When the Fair Labor Standards Act was enacted, farm workers, domestic workers, and other jobs that were primarily held by black people were excluded from the most fundamental protections of the statute. Congressmen went to the floor of Congress and made speeches about how black and whites could not be paid the same wages, explicitly arguing that that would cause racial unrest. That legacy lives in our law today. Our housing court is another example. Here in the district, we have taken extraordinary steps to protect tenants. We have progressive laws, paid millions for lawyers to be in housing court, and provided rental assistance. Yet we have an epidemic of eviction that primarily affects black women and their children. This is not because the people in the system are racist. Judges, clerks, lawyers, politicians all want to do justice. This is because we have a system that prizes property over people, that values the ownership of the land over the people that live on it. The same can be said about virtually every aspect of our legal system. Racial and economic injustice is woven into the fabric of the system about something. This does not mean that what is necessary is not important just because it's not sufficient. Every action, every eviction that's been prevented, every public benefit that's been secured, every immigrant who gains status, every victim of police violence who receives compensation, every trans student who can use his, her, or their proper name, every prisoner who gets compassionate release matters. This work is necessary, it's essential, it is noble, it changes, and in some cases saves lives. I was recently on a Zoom call, and I expressed some version of this sentiment. People who know me know that uplifting, cheerful, Pollyanna rarely are used in my expression. So I was doing this on the Zoom call. And so somebody sent me a little video clip afterwards. And the video clip was of Raphael Warnock, and he was on a late night TV show, and he was asked about the challenge that we're facing the world today. He was asked about, the threats to democracy, the poverty, the rise of hate, and he was asked, how do you maintain hope? And in face of all of this, I think his response is really helpful. Raphael Warnock said, he says, when John Lewis was standing atop of the Edmund Pettus Bridge, and he was marching down to the batons of the Alabama State Police, he didn't know that the Voting Rights Act would ever be passed. John Lewis knew how to do both what was necessary and what was sufficient. We too need to figure out how to do both what is necessary and what is sufficient. We need to find our Edmund Pettus Bridge, and together we need to walk down that bridge and face the consequences. And I am proud to be in this community where people are committed to doing just that. We continue to do what is necessary
what is important, what changes lives, but we can make that fundamental change to create true and lasting justice. And so I'm really honored to have this award, and I'm really honored by everybody who's come out, and I want to thank you, and I'll end it there.
There just could not be a more deserving recipient. Jonathan, congratulations, and thank you for those incredibly inspiring remarks. It was really fabulous. Congratulations. All right, so the last thing we have on the program tonight is to thank board members and others who have completed their service with us. And I have to say that, you know, being on this board for the last 5 years, the best thing about doing this work for me has been the people that I've been able to do this work with on the board. The board is a fabulous group here at the foundation, truly fabulous, really far-thinking, really strategic, really caring, really thinking ahead about understanding the special role that we have here in the foundation and the important work that we have to do in pulling everything together and sitting in this fabulous catbird seat where we can see where the need is, where the gaps are, how we take this tremendous amount of funding that we now have managed to pull together and figure out where does it go to do the most good in the most efficient way. And that, doing that with people of the caliber of Jonathan and all of his peers here in this room who serve on this board, the fantastic staff of this foundation, and the exemplary leadership of Kira. Kira is just an amazing, amazing executive director. I've worked with her for 5 years. Really, we are blessed to have Kira leading this organization, I just want to say. It's extraordinary. So now I have the responsibility, and in a way it's a bit sad, but it's a wonderful responsibility to thank so many of the board members and others who, a few of them here, who have given great service. I want to start with board members. The board members will receive a framed print. I have 2 of them here, which is a watercolor map of the District of Columbia. I think you can see it on the screen there. And it's by local artist Mary Belcher. And I just want to say that her watercolor streetscapes and neighborhood maps of Washington, D.C. are known for their rich color and their fine details, you can see from the screen. During her 24 years as a full-time artist, her clients have included the Nature Conservancy, the Smithsonian Folklife Festival, the National Building Museum, the White House Historical Association, and many, many others. All right, so the first outgoing board member I want to recognize is Phil Horton. Phil, where are you? Great. So many of you, I can tell, know Phil, and everybody here knows Phil. Phil joined the DC Bar Foundation in 2016 and has completed 6 years of service. He has served a year as the assistant treasurer, 2 years as treasurer, and 6 years each on our finance committee and development committee, including several years chairing each of those committees. And during his years on the development committee, as many of you know, Phil helped raise a lot of money. I have a number here, $4.8 million from law firms and individuals to support the foundation's work. Thank you, Phil. Those are going to be big shoes to fill. We've got a lot of work to do. And so, Phil, I want to ask you to come on up, and we've got a token of our thanks and a copy of this watercolor. Congratulations. We're going to miss you. There you go. I'm not far away.
Phil, please. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, Phil. The second person I want to recognize is Natalie Guilfoyle. Natalie joined the board in 2017 and has completed 5 years of service. Natalie served a year as secretary, 2 years as vice president, and several years each on the audit, grants, and governance committees. And I want to thank you, Natalie, for your many years of dedicated service to the foundation. So if we could all, Natalie's not here tonight, but thank Natalie. We're also presenting a Ben's Chili Bowl watercolor by the same artist to Kelly Darnell. Kelly, where are you? Kelly? This is very special for me. Kelly joined the board in 2017, and she recently completed a year as board president. And Kelly, I personally have to say thank you. It's been, I got to serve as the vice president and with Kelly, and all I had to do was just watch her work. She is amazing, truly amazing as a leader, as a person, as an inspiration, all the work she does, just an absolute force. Kelly, thank you so much for all that you've done. And I'm already beginning to understand what it means to have to follow in your footsteps. I've got a big job ahead of me, and I'm hoping I'm gonna make it. And I just want to say I'm super glad that they created this position of past president so that you're going to be around for another year, right? And be able to, I can still call on you officially and ask you for advice. So Kelly, thank you so much for all you've done.
Thank you.
All right, and next we've got some certificates that we're going to give to several folks who have completed leadership positions, who ended their terms early due to changed work and life circumstances. And these are the board members I want to thank are Connie Bertram and Connie's here? Connie's here tonight? Yes, no? Okay. And Vernetta Walker and advisory committee member Angeli Phillips. Thank you all for your service. All right, and finally, not finally actually, just the next set is Young Lawyers Network Leadership Council members who have completed their terms and combined with a combined 26 years of volunteer service to the foundation. And I just want to say that last week I had a chance to meet about 6 of the members of Young Lawyers Network, and wow, what an incredibly impressive group, bringing unbelievable energy. Daryl Byler's done a fantastic job working this network and building it, and what a source of inspiration and energy for the foundation and future service. All 4 will receive a crystal business card holder embossed with their name, years of service, and the DC Bar Foundation's logo. So, first person I want to recommend to acknowledge, to recognize is Gwen Green, who is an attorney with Holland and Hart. She joined the Young Lawyers Network Leadership Council in 2012 and served 7 years on the development committee. Thank you to Gwen. The second is Laura Ames, who is an attorney with the U.S. Department of Energy. She joined the Young Lawyers Network Leadership Council in 2016 and has served on the IOLTA and Young Lawyers LC selection committees. Thank you, Laura. Really great. The third is Fahad Sagir. He's an attorney with Alston and Bird. He joined the Young Lawyers Leadership Council in 2016 and served as co-chair from 2017 to 2019. He has also served on the IOLTA and the Young Lawyers LC selection committees. Thank you, Fahad. And Fahad, are you here tonight? Yes. Come on up, please. Thank you so much. And finally, Emily Hubbard. Emily, are you here tonight? Is Emily here? No? Okay. Emily is an attorney at the U.S. Department of Justice. She joined the Young Lawyers Network Leadership Council in 2018 and has served 2 years on the Grants Committee. So Emily, thank you so much for your service. And we're also giving certificates to 2 Leadership Council members who ended their terms early, Carla Dedamore and Michael Ingram. To both of you, thank you very much. So to all of you who have served, thank you so much. It's really fabulous to have such support, to have such a network that allows the foundation to do its work. All right. So that concludes our program, and we are really grateful to all of you for coming out tonight. Wonderful that you were able to join us for this fall reception. We really count on your continuing partnership and all of your support as we work to transform DC's civil legal aid network for the benefit of all of our residents of our city. And for those of you who have joined us online, I wish you a very pleasant evening. And for those who are here, we have lots of drink and we have lots of food, so stick around and take advantage of this evening all together. Thank you so much for coming.